Welcome everybody to this evening session of Dhamma practice. And we're going to begin with some meditation, guided meditation for 45 minutes or so, and then we'll have some words on Dhamma. And then a little bit of time at the end for questions and answers or any sharings on Dhamma. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite everyone to begin a meditation practice. So first of all, closing the eyes and coming into this sense of the sitting posture, feeling out, coming home to the body and seeing how is it right now? We can notice the temperature in the room and on different parts of the body. Just these simple observations. The posture. Observing the way that we hold this body. And I find it really interesting. Don't know about you, but when we start to meditate, often there's a sense of relaxation that starts to seep in. The body beginning to, what is it? To droop, to settle, to unwind. Just feeling the muscles that often are so tight and tense, beginning to soften. Breathing deep. Oh, it's so nice just to sit. No agenda, no jobs to do at this moment. We've come here to meditate. We've come here to simply be here. This is such a gift. This is such a privilege. It's a luxury. And it's one that we can fully appreciate when we practice the Buddha's teachings. That this is more than enough. There's nothing missing here. Coming fully into this moment, presence, nothing else is required. And so, of course, the body enjoys and the mind enjoys this opportunity, this space, this practice. So let's direct our attention to the body and feel the weight, the posture, the temperature, any movement, and feeling in the body. What is it to feel? There's usually some element of vibration or pulsation, some kind of a flickering sense to feeling. When we meditate, we can observe that there's pleasant and unpleasant feelings. If there's pain somewhere in the body, sure, that is unpleasant. As the body starts to relax, as we sit still, breathing and being present for this body, of course, we can say pleasant feeling can arise as we enjoy simply sitting with wise, with kind attention. But a lot of what we feel is quite neutral. isn't it? Doesn't really strongly attract or repel us. It's just some sense of the skin, the edges of the body, perceiving touch, quite neutral, feeling the touch of the air on the skin, feeling the touch of the clothing. Can you feel it here and there? Or feeling the warmth where the clothing is insulating the body as compared to the cooler, exposed areas. To feel the breath is quite neutral, most often. Feeling the breath coming in the nostrils, filling the chest and belly as they inflate and deflate with the breath. The beauty of this meditation, most of our body awareness as we develop it, it's calming. We're letting go of desire and aversion, of covetousness and grief for the world, the push and pull, the intensity. This is quite calm here, sitting. We can observe the effect of paying attention to neutral feelings, just the way it is. I don't need more of it. I don't need to get away from it. Here it is. As we continue to observe this body sitting, body breathing, we can become aware of more subtle experiences. It can be very helpful for our mindfulness development to move the attention away from the obvious and direct it towards the less obvious. And in this way, we can benefit a great deal from moving the attention around the body to places where we wouldn't otherwise have any awareness, any connection. So I'd like to invite you now to quite methodically scan the body in whatever way works for you. Oftentimes it can be helpful to start at the top of the head, and move the attention down all around the scalp area. And immediately it kind of springs to life, doesn't it? Oh, I have a scalp. As soon as we direct our attention to any part of the body, it seemingly comes to life because we can feel so much when we pay attention. So paying attention to the area where the hair grows long, scalp area, coming over to the forehead, the temples. And often we have a bit of a frown here. There's a bit of holding in these muscles of the brow and around the eyes. Just see how, when we pay attention, the tension here can relax. The frown can smooth out. Feeling around the eyes, the eye sockets. The same, releasing of any tightness or tension here. It's like a straightening out, an opening out can happen quite naturally. Coming round to the ears, sides of the face, the cheeks, the nose, and the upper lip, and the lower lip. And immediately we can feel them, can't we? Good to pay attention here. And keeping the attention moving, scanning on the chin and the jaw. And oftentimes, if we pay attention here, come inside the mouth. Notice the teeth and how they're held. A lot of people grind their teeth. There's this constant work going on, completely unnecessarily. Let the jaw relax. See how we can notice tension, grinding, lower jaw pressing into the upper jaw. And when we pay attention, we can let it drop. Let the mouth hang open if that's comfortable for you. But often it's more just a separating of the teeth and a sense of relaxation. All around the jaw area and the throat, coming down to the neck, to the throat. Sometimes very tight, very constricted. Just allowing the attention to really release and relax any areas in the throat, in the neck, that are tight or tense in any way. Moving round to the back of the neck, and we can notice the posture. How is the head held on the body? Often it can be like a kind of pushing forward, as if we're moving into the next moment, head first. Just see if there's any kind of adjustment that can be made to rest back, upright, allowing the head to sit on the body in a way that requires no effort and opens the throat, lets the thyroid breathe, allows space for swallowing and breathing. So we can notice the breathing here. Notice the natural breath and swallowing. Just to mindfully swallow and to feel that process with our full attention. Feel the saliva in the mouth, in the throat, moving down. And slowly but surely coming down to the shoulders, both sides symmetrically. Oh, just let the mindfulness, the attention, kind attention, like a warm massage with hot oil, just all around the shoulder area, feeling what we feel. Again, it's often quite neutral feeling, but we may notice tension here, knots even, hard places, tightnesses. We're not trying to change anything with this body awareness practice, but just to see, to feel, to know the way things are. But so often as a result of our endeavor, of our attention, deeper and deeper relaxation comes about. So observing the shoulders, and if there's any inclination to stretch a little or to move the neck a little bit, move the head a little bit to ease any tension here, then that's totally fine to be done. Always adjusting the posture as needed. And as we continue to develop this awareness, the posture will often realign in helpful ways. Coming down now the arms, all the way down from the shoulders to the elbows. What can we feel? What's it like to have arms? How do we know we have arms? Sense of location, sense of feeling, tone, skin, position, touch. We can feel the elbows touching the legs, perhaps. Coming down the forearms to the wrists, warm or hot or cold. Any discomfort or just quite numb sometimes, not very much apparent. But as we pay attention, we can see how actually, yes, there's a lot going on. There's a subtle something, sometimes like a vibration or a quivering or a sort of like pins and needles type feeling. We don't really need to describe it, but just feel it. Feel the body in the body. Coming down the hands, palms of the hands, back of the hands, the knuckles, the thumbs, right to the tip of the thumbs, and the four fingers in turn. Down to the fingertips, feeling what's happening here right now. Almost always neutral feeling in the hands, the feet, the head. Not always, but often a good place to pay attention if there's a lot of restlessness or emotional turmoil or physical pain elsewhere in the body, just to rest here in the hands. It's soothing, it's peaceful. There's a lot to observe here. We can really direct our attention to the hands very usefully at any time to ease and calm and develop greater mindfulness. And coming back up to the shoulders, top of the trunk, the chest area. Let's move the attention all around the front of the chest, sides, and the back. Again, as we pay attention to the spine here, we can see how there may be some slouching, and it may be good to straighten up. And then notice how the chest cavity is hugely expanded. Space opens up as we sit straight. We can breathe more easily and feel the breath here. How do we feel the breath in the lungs? Usually it's just that sense, isn't it, of expansion and contraction. We can notice, the rib cage moving with every breath, the diaphragm. Can we feel the diaphragm? Pushing down with every in-breath, coming up with every out-breath. Whatever you feel, the subtle movements of the breath here, the sense of air element inside the chest, and the heart. Can you feel the heart? Can you feel any pulsation here? Or a sense of heaviness? Often this area, the chest area, we have emotion here. There can be a feeling, more complex emotional quality, sadness or fear or joy, expansive or contracted. Just see. How is it? Going right inside, internally and externally, we can take to mean, at this point, inside, right inside the chest cavity. What's happening? What can we experience? And also moving the attention all around the surface. The skin, the musculature, the movement, the posture. How could we not be mindful when there's so much to observe? This is a way, this body scanning contemplation, it's a way to help us to stay focused in the body. There's really not much room for thinking, for any kind of distraction, for any movement into the past or future. We're here. We're gripped. We're attentive. The mind is becoming more one-pointed. So with our scan, with our laser-like attention, let's move down, further down to the abdomen. Again, the posture, seeing how the lumbar, the lower spine is held. seeing how it naturally finds its center of gravity, its comfortable posture, often involving a sort of straightening up. Breathing deep into the abdomen, right into the belly, base of the body. Feeling the movement there with every breath. Can you feel the touch of the clothes here against the belly, the sides? Can you feel anything happening inside? Can you feel pleasant or unpleasant? Is there any emotional feeling here? Is there a sort of mood here? A sort of mental quality, a tone here? Is there tension? Is there holding? Is there fear? Breathing deep and just exploring, investigating what it's like here in the belly. Moving the attention around from place to place in this part of the body. And we can move down now to the pelvis, the sitting bones, the buttocks, the genital area, right down at the bottom of the body. And just see, how is it? What can be felt here? And moving the attention through every part, not missing anything out. And if there's any numbness, to stay there a bit longer until there's something apparent, some subtle feeling. And where there's easeful attention, easeful experiencing, then we can move on to the next points, the next area. Scanning. It's like we're looking for this body. We're looking for what can be observed, knowing that there's something here in every part of the body that can be known, that can be experienced. All around this area, the base of the body, the obvious sitting pressure, weight, to the more subtle skin, inside, anything there, anything that can be felt. And the spine, the base of the spine. Posture again. Everything's resting on this point. How is it? Is it comfortable? Is it in the right kind of alignment? And the body centers itself, given this spacious kind awareness. And coming down the legs, down the thighs, bit by bit, working our way, moving gently, gradually down to the knees, with the intention not to leave out any part. We have a kind of mental map, don't we, of the body, and it's useful. We can apply it and notice, yes, I know there are legs down there, but also I can feel them. I can feel them. I can allow them, give them space, give them attention. Coming down the thighs to the knees and all around the knees. These powerful joints, the skin, the bone, the muscle, the temperature, any pressure, any pain, the subtle and the obvious. Giving time to investigate here. And then gradually moving down the shins, the calves, feeling the position, the touch of surfaces, the tingling of the skin, the surface, the way they're held. Any muscles that are relaxing here as we pay attention, and the relaxation deepens. Coming down to the ankles, the heels, the soles of the feet, all around, tops of the feet, gradually working down to the toes. And one by one, on both sides at the same time, feeling big toes, number 2, 3. Can we distinguish between the toes? We can if we pay attention. 4, and the little toes. It's quite sweet, isn't it? Paying attention to our little toes. It's like, hello. It's the same with every part of the body. It's like saying, hello, I'm with you. I feel. And it's not I then, is it? As we pay attention to all of this, we can be very aware, can't we, that it's not really personal. It's not really mine. These are Dhammas. This is an experience. These are phenomena. This is feeling. This is body. And I'd like to invite you to continue to scan around the body and just wake up to this extraordinary degree, manifestation of feeling that is here for us as an object of meditation. Scanning the body in different ways can be helpful to come right back up to the top of the head and just repeat the whole process methodically so we don't miss anything out. And we might speed up the process, having been through once, one full sweep of the body, we can go a bit quicker the second time because it's easier. Because we're already very focused, very present. The mindfulness is sharper than when we began. And so I'm going to allow us to sit in silence now, continuing to pay attention to the body, seeing how this way of practice really is a great way to overcome the hindrances. There's not much room for Mara here. We're present. We're awake. to Kayanupassana, to Vedananupassana, body awareness, feelings awareness. So we can meditate for another 15 minutes or so. I'll ring the gong at the end of the session. We can come to the end of the meditation session. Just taking your time to open the eyes, maybe have a stretch and a change of posture. Give the body some kindness. See what it needs. And I'd like to say a few words now on Dhamma. I'll start by paying respects to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sangham namasami. So I'd like to say a few words this evening about the second and third meditation instructions given to us by the Buddha in the Satipatthana Sutta. These are in the section, the first foundation of mindfulness, body awareness. And the Buddha, in the first meditation practice that I was talking about last week, Anapanasati, gives a very subtle and profound teaching about breath awareness. Well, the second and third teachings, meditation kind of instructions from the Buddha, are about body posture, the four postures, sitting, standing, walking, and lying down. And then the third instruction is to observe, to be mindful of all the activities of the body. Sitting, standing, lying, walking, but also eating, drinking, urinating, defecating, moving, looking in different directions, carrying things, putting things down, and so forth. So putting these two instructions together, it's really possible for us to have a continuity of practice, isn't it? If we're able to direct our mindfulness to the second and third meditation objects, then we can be aware all the time of this body. It's interesting that these methods, techniques come after Anapanasati, breath awareness, because actually it's a lot easier to be aware, isn't it, of how the body's held at this moment. Whether it's sitting or lying down, for instance, it's more easy to be aware of whether I'm speaking or eating or running than it is to watch the breath. So it's quite interesting that the instructions come in this order. These ways of paying attention to the body really give us the chance to make everything practice, to make everything a way, a doorway, an opportunity to develop sati, to develop mindfulness. To develop mindfulness with clear comprehension is the instruction from the Buddha. So we want to be mindful and we want to understand what we're doing. Sati sampajanya. We want to have a sense of, in a way, kind of purpose to the practice or right intention, you know. So I'm developing awareness in order to understand Dhamma. I'm paying attention to the body in order to appreciate this experience and what it can teach me, what I can learn from it, what wisdom can be developed. So with this kind of extra dimension, really, of understanding the Buddha's teachings, considering the Eightfold Path, Samasati, right mindfulness. It's also, in the Eightfold Path, we have Sama Samadhi, right focus. We have Sama Vayama, right effort. So, all of these factors come in, don't they? And then there's the right intention and right view, the wisdom aspects. All of this can be applied. And here we are, waking up to our experience. So focusing on this aspect of the four satipatthanas, the body awareness, there's so much that we can observe in relation to postures and activities of the body. First of all, we can see how we use or how we hold or how we make use of this body in our everyday life. How active are we? How do we choose to spend our time? What postures do we prefer? What postures do we neglect? Some of us are have the tendency to be couch potatoes, and we love to sit and lie down, but we're not so big on walking. We can notice that. We can notice what happens when we sit for long periods without moving the body, what effect that has on the mind, on the heart. We can notice when we do walking meditation, how is it different from sitting? There's a kind of gradation when the Buddha speaks about the four postures. He gives them in a certain order in the Satipatthana Sutta. He speaks first of all of walking, then of standing, then sitting, and then lying down. That's quite interesting when we consider the kind of energy that goes into each of these postures. We can observe why we move, why we have the inclination or the tendency to certain activities in the body. What's the push? What's the intention? Why do we do what we do? We can notice that there's often a kind of emotional components or mood to different postures, to different activities. If a person is depressed, if we're feeling down, de-energized, we'll lie down. And oftentimes this will, it's like chicken and egg, isn't it? It's like, which comes first? If we lie down, we feel slothful. We might have low energy. And if we have low energy, we might lie down. And then you can get this sort of prolonging of the effect. We can notice that. We can notice how, as the Buddha told us, if there's a low energy, a slothfulness, the best thing we can do is move. Get up, stand up, walk about. Now, we talk about this in terms of meditation, but we can also consider it in our everyday life, in all the other aspects of our life, not just formal meditation. How do I use this body? How do I treat it? What's the kind of proportion of the different postures in this day that I've just had? So in this way, we're observing the way it is, and we're also able to kind of train ourselves or to observe the effect of what we're doing. We can also notice, right, with bodily activities, if there's some kind of hindrance playing out. Sometimes we can pick it up by the way we're moving or the way we're speaking. If I'm angry, my movements might be a little bit more rough, a little bit more hasty or clumsy or loud in some way. You know, my speech may be a bit charged, a bit intense. If I'm afraid, if there's fear in the system, often there's a lack of movement, isn't there? There's a kind of like a freezing. We hold ourselves quite still and quite tight, as if, you know, we want to disappear, we want to shrink, not to be noticed. We can observe this. We can observe when we're feeling confident, how we may sit straighter, stand straighter, swing our arms as we walk, be relaxed in our postures. So there's so much, isn't there, to understand and to see and to learn from observing this body and this mind and how they interplay and how our postures express so much, not just on the physical level, but also on the mental level. Dhamma, investigation of Dhamma, this enlightenment factor. Mindfulness is the first enlightenment factor. Investigation of Dhamma is the second. There's so much we can investigate. And as we investigate, as we explore the postures and the activities of the body, the more we focus on this, then the less we're distracted by hindrances, the less we're losing mindfulness, the more, in short, our mindfulness is strengthened. So let's keep investigating. Let's notice. And we can also kind of be creative around this, you know. If I have, for instance, the tendency to hunch over and just want to be invisible through fear or through, can be suppressed anger, it could be grief, bowing me down. If I notice that the posture is like this, then I can actually choose to change it and see what happens, to straighten up, to speak a bit more loudly, to hold my head up a little higher, to take a deep breath or two, and see how the mind changes. So we can learn about our habits, we can learn about our characteristics, our tendencies, and we can also let go of them. We can also expand into something different. We can experiment. When we're mindful, we have a lot of freedom, don't we? You know, we're recognizing that there's nothing that defines us here. There's actually nobody here. There's nothing solid or lasting. There's dhammas. There's behaviors, there's activities, there's postures. There's this body, there's this mind, constantly changing. And as we experiment a little, as we observe the habits, the ways in which we hold this body and use this body and experience this body, you know, we can start to recognize it's quite impersonal, really. There's reasons why I'm like this, why the posture's like this, why the belly is held like this, why the breath is like this. There's reasons, there's causes, and there's always the possibility to let go and to free up from our habits, our inclinations. Actually, mindfulness of activities, mindfulness of postures, as we develop this, which we can do throughout the day, we generally can expect to notice that the way we manifest physically is likely to become more refined. Why? Because we're being more mindful. Because there's this influence then when we're observing and watching and aware, of this body and how it's moving and how it's relating to the world, then we're likely to become more careful. There's more care. There's more of an awareness of, say, the noise we might make as we move around in the house. And quite naturally, there's an awareness of that. And so there's an inclination perhaps to just not make so much noise. In monasteries, we get a lot of teachings around how to open and close doors, to do so without making noise, basically. Because when we live with other people, isn't it, we do impinge on one another when we're noisy. If we are aware, are mindful, we tend to want to cause less disturbance, not out of fear or anxiety, but out of a sense of well-wishing and care. So we generally become more careful. And when we have awareness of bodily activities, postures, we're also more inwardly focused. So we're a lot less likely to be reactive. What is reactivity? It's the arising of hindrances. It's the arising in relation to something that's seen or heard or felt or thought. Something happens. Reactivity is there's a response, which is wanting or not wanting, liking or not liking, wanting to get away from, wanting to move towards. Reactivity arises. Well, how does it arise? How does it manifest for us? It usually manifests in the body. So, when we're aware of the body, we're aware of reactivity as it arises, long before we say or do anything. Angry, averse, we're going to feel something in the body. And when we're aware of that, we can immediately give kind attention to it. And when we do that, when we're mindful of reactivity, what happens? It's appeased, it's seen. It doesn't grow. It doesn't escalate. We're not caught up in the flood. We're actually observing, oh, there's an arising here. There's something hot and bothered arising. There's a tightening in the gut. There's a quickening of the breath. There's heat coming into the body. As soon as we notice that, then the situation will start to change already. So we will be less reactive. We will manifest less reactivity, and we'll experience less reactivity because we're at the source. We can catch, we can observe any kind of dukkha, basically, any kind of suffering as it arises. And as we pay attention, kind attention to any kind of suffering in the mind and body, then we see how they change. They resolve, these things pass, These things arise, these things pass away. We're not adding any fuel to the flames. How wonderful. So there can be a spark of reactivity due to past causes. And rather than adding suffering and heaping suffering on suffering, we're catching it. And we're just allowing the flame to burn for as long as it has the fuel from the past, from our habits, from certain causes. But we're not making it any greater. We're not adding to it in any way. We're observing it. The energy of observing, of mindfulness, is something like coolness. It's like, it helps to put out the flames, doesn't it? And so we can see the flame burning for a while, and then we keep watching, and what happens? It just goes out. So we develop calm, we develop peace, we develop a less reactive way of being in the world. You know, our bodily activities, when we apply mindfulness to them, they become more restrained. And this quality of restraint is something very beautiful. And we can see it, can't we? We can observe it in ourselves, and maybe not so much in ourselves, but we can observe it in others. What I mean is, we see more clearly looking at others. Sometimes in ourselves, we might feel very reactive, but others will say, oh, you're so calm. You're so peaceful. We might be boiling and bubbling inside, but so we don't necessarily notice our peaceful demeanor, but others will notice. And when we come across people who've been meditating for many years, who have a good meditation practice, who are mindful, in short, then often we observe and we're impressed by, and it's easeful to be around such people because they are calm and peaceful, and their bodily activities are more measured, more kind of efficient. We can also, through mindfulness of body in this way, in these ways of observing posture, observing activities, we can also become more efficient. You know, it's like when I brush my teeth, if I'm not being very mindful, it can be quite a, you know, coarse, rough, prolonged process. Messy even. If one is mindful, brushing our teeth, we'll just brush them this much, just what's needed, you know, with an economy of movement. I'd like to invite you to try and just observe if that's true for you, or with any other activity. When we're mindful, when I'm aware of using water, which I know is in, you know, short supply in California where I am, when I'm mindful, I'll just use the amount that's needed. It's usually not very much. If there's not mindfulness, it can be a case of turning on the tap and loads of water running for no good reason. So, you know, mindfulness gives us a degree of care, both for this mind and body, and also for the external world. Care, efficiency. We actually develop, as the Buddha tells us in the Satipatthana Sutta, through paying attention to posture, to activity in the body, we develop all the enlightenment factors. How beautiful. We develop mindfulness. We're investigating the Dhamma moment by moment, more and more deeply. We're also developing energy, the energy of applying mindfulness right here, the energy of restraint, bringing our attention, you know, back again and again to the body, remembering to do that. Takes energy, takes effort. We're developing this enlightenment factor of energy. We can develop also a real sense of well-being being in the body. Isn't it the case? I don't know about you, but I think many, many people experience meditation as something very soothing and easeful for the body. Just to be able to relax, muscle by muscle, mindfully relaxing. The relaxing actually happens of its own accord, doesn't it? If we just allow ourselves to sit, to meditate, it is so deeply easeful for us. And we can experience great well-being in this body and in this mind. Piti can arise. A sense of happiness kind of steals upon us as we meditate day by day. The feeling of well-being grows. And it grows both in the mind and also in this body, the way we hold the body, the way we treat the body, in just these ways I've been describing. We also develop samadhi, this enlightenment factor of focus, of stillness, of one-pointedness. We are training the mind. We are developing the mind. We are growing in peace and stillness. As we develop awareness of body, we're developing samadhi. We're developing concentration. This is hugely beneficial for us. We're developing tranquility. As I was saying, a kind of economy of motion, a kind of efficiency, a kind of restraint can come in as we observe this body through the days. And we develop equanimity, because the reactivity that's inevitable until we're arahants, things happen, we respond in different ways. We are observing that. We're catching the responses, that little tightening of the belly, that little bit of tension in the shoulders that heralds some kind of reactivity, some kind of emotional flood about to spring forth. We can catch that, as I was saying. Equanimity is developed. This beautiful quality of being quite even amidst the ups and downs of life, being quite unshakable, not to be shaken, not to be, buffeted by the winds, the worldly winds of liking and disliking, pleasure and pain, good and bad. Rather than being buffeted by these winds, we can stand very firmly, like a tree rooted in the ground. This body awareness roots us. It grounds us, doesn't it? We can stand firm. So in all these ways, I'd like to encourage all of us to keep developing our body awareness and let it be a practice that comes in all the time, in all that we're doing, even when we're caught up in, a lot of busy mental activity, working in an office, on the computer, all sorts of complexity on the mental level for us in many different ways, perhaps, in our lives. Even then, can we take a moment from time to time, have a mindful moment, and just feel the body sitting in the chair, and notice the posture, and see how it might be that we're leaning forwards. It might be that our teeth are grinding. It might be that our belly's tight. We might be sitting in a really uncomfortable position and we just haven't noticed because we've been too occupied in some sort of headspace. Can we be kind and take a pause from time to time and just readjust, just to come back to the body and see what's needed? It's almost like we don't need to do anything, but the body will do what it needs to do. And we all know this because we all meditate. So just as when we're meditating, we allow comfortable posture. And we even, as we're sitting, we even improve on the posture and find ways to give the body more ease. So we can do this throughout the day. Just like in the Thich Nhat Hanh tradition, ringing the mindfulness bell every 15 minutes or so, I think it is. Can we do that too? Remember, sati, recollect, be present, be mindful, pay attention to the body, and see how we can develop continuity in our practice in this way. Anyone? Sadhu, 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 sadhu.